Welcome everyone. Today I'm super excited to talk about JavaScript loops. Loops are very common in many programming languages, and also in JavaScript we have many loops. Today we will see the different kinds of loops we get when we write JavaScript codes. But first, let's talk about loops. When do we use loops? And what are the importance of loops? Programming is full of patterns and repetitiveness. So to solve repetitive tasks, we use loops. For instance, if we like to print from 0 to 10, we can use just loop and do it in a millisecond or less. But if we do it manually, it might take us a minute or two. For instance, if we like to send a message to 1,000 users, it may take quite a lot of time if we do it manually, but we can do it in a couple of seconds using loops. So we use loops to avoid repetitive tasks. In programming, we have different repetitive patterns and tasks, and we can solve this task using loops. So loops can make our code clean and also easy to read. In this article, you can get everything you need related to JavaScript loops, and you can go step by step, and also you can follow the video tutorial. In addition to this, you may also check the example codes in the scripts folder. After I said this, let's move on to coding. See you there. Welcome back. In this tutorial we will talk about VS Code. VS Code is becoming the most popular code editor, and I've been using it. I'm happy about it, and I'm using it every day. It is really great. You can also try it out. Maybe if you are using Atom or Bracket or Sublime, this is more powerful than Bracket or Atom or most of the code editors. So it's for free. You can try it out. And today I will use VS Code. So this is my VS Code, and let me also open this, minimize, I think. Okay, then I can create a folder on the desktop. I can call it JavaScript Loops. Yeah, so let's create a file, and I call it index.html. It's the leading file. It's mostly common to use such kind of file index. Yes, I think let me make it like this. Then let's generate some boilerplate. HTML5. Maybe if you didn't see, if I'm a bit fast, well, this is HTML5. You can generate HTML5, then you will get this boilerplate for free. JavaScript loops. You can write JavaScript inside the head or the body, but it's preferred to put it inside the body, so I will use script. And then let's start console.log and JavaScript loops tutorial, and I am using this extension live server, and you should install it to run your code. And now let me just open live server and then this is what I see. Control Shift I to open the console. I think I have lots of things here. I can remove it by just selected only that. Now as you can see, JavaScript Loops tutorial is coming from index.html at line 11. Let's check line 11. Yes, it's coming from that. So now we managed to configure our HTML and the VS Code. It's running. So now we are ready to write JavaScript code. So we can write it here inside the HTML, or actually we can also write it outside. For instance, I call it setting up.js, because now we are setting up. I call it setting up script, and then we have to use source to locate the file. Which file? Setting up.js, and then instead we take this there. We're not going to have this, and then I put it here, and then I will get the same value, JavaScript Loops tutorial. So from now on we put our codes outside the index.html. That means we use external script. I think for this video, this part is enough, and in the next video I will talk about for loop. See you soon. Welcome back. In this part we will cover for loop. So let's create a file, for loop.js. So to write for loop, we need the keyword for loop and then parentheses and then curly bracket. This is something you should remember, and inside the parentheses we need initialization and a condition and increment or decrement. So let's change this to a quote. The initialization, usually this is how we start. Let I, the I is not a reserved word, it could be any I or K or J, it doesn't matter, but it's common to use I is equal to 0, and then the condition, for instance, if I want to print from 0 to 10, I less than 11, and I plus plus means increasing by 1 each time. So now I am just removing the pseudocode and console.log I. This should give us from 0 to 10. Now I have to start my code. I'm not going to use the live server because if it continuously run, I may end up to infinite loop, so I don't like that to happen. So let me open it instead using by double clicking. So I just double click this and then Control Shift I to open the console. We don't need this. Then this is not yet connected, so let me connect this to script source dot for loop. Now I have to refresh this one. As you can see, I managed to print from 0 to 10. Yeah, that's great. Let's change this to 101. So this means printing from 0 to 101. Actually, it doesn't include because it's less than, so up to 100. As you can see, 100. How about if we want to only print even numbers? We can do something like this. I plus 2, that means 0 to 4. We are increasing by 2 each time. So now as you can see, it is only even numbers. If we are interested only in odd numbers, actually we can put here 1, and then if we do this, now it's also, what is the result? As you can see, yeah, it's only odd if we start from 1. Yeah, we can print odd and even like this, just in a systematic way, or we can also use if condition. Let's see the article, what is included in the for loop. I think that's for. Maybe we can see just for. This is the syntax: initialization, condition, increment or decrement, and your code goes inside the code block. We call this code block. It's like a fence or a compound. So this is what we saw, and if we want to sum all the numbers inside here, for instance, let's say let sum is equal to 0, and actually sum is equal to sum plus I. We start from 0 and we are adding h every time. So let's see the result there. I think it's down. So, oh yeah, I didn't print out the result. So console.log and then the sum. As you can see, the sum is actually 2,500 because now we are just printing only odd numbers, but let's just print everything from 0 to 100 by doing this. Yeah, 5,050. Let's see also if we have others. For instance, if you are interested only in the even numbers, you can do this way. Even numbers, that means if I is divided by 2 is equal to 0, that means, I think it's also safe to use 3 equal sign. So when we divide I by 2, if the result is 0, that means it's divisible. So we can put this here. And then now what we get is actually only the even numbers. So 2,550. And if we just by negating this, something like this, by negating this, we are also getting the odd numbers. Yeah, this is 2,500 is the odd numbers. So we can use different way to get the evens and the odds. One is by condition, like this. The other is actually by just changing the starting. We start from 1, and if we do increment by 2, we do this. This is also actually odd numbers. And if we just start from 0 and if we increment by 2 every time, and now we are getting only even numbers, we can see the value. Just console.log I. Let's see the printout. As you can see, these are even numbers. And if you change this one to this 0 value to 1, and we will get odd numbers. As you can see, these are all odd numbers. Let's see more. Yeah, so as you can see, for instance, we have even numbers here, and then we can iterate also from from arrays. One is the nums is equal to 1 2 3 4 5. Sorry, 3 4 5. For let I is equal to 0 and I less than nums dot length and I plus plus. Then console.log nums, and we access them by their index, and then I. No, this one actually, if we do this, we will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, we can store them also in a different array. Const new array, and for instance, if we change to this to double every time, so new array dot push, and then we like to nums times by 2. Every time each value I'm multiplying by 2, and then the new array will be the double of each items. So let's see, console.log and new array. Yeah, oh, but everything is just 4. The reason why instead of writing I wrote 1. That is the reason why we got the same value. Now we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I think this is what you need about for loop. Now let's see how to print, from 10 to 0 for let I is equal to 0, 10, and then while I is greater than or equal to 0, I is minus, and then what you do, actually console.log, and then I think this should print from 10 to 0. Yeah, as you can see, 10 to 0. Yes, great. I think this is enough for loop, and I hope this can help you to understand for loop. I will see you in the next video. Welcome back. In the previous video we covered for loop, and in this video we will talk about while loop. We use while loop when we don't know how many times to iterate for unknown times of looping. So let's do some example. First, let's create while loop.js. So to write a while loop, we need the while, and then a parenthesis, and then curly bracket. This is the syntax which you have to remember. So here we will have condition. So the condition should be true to execute this code. For instance, let's iterate from 0 to 10. Let count is equal to 0. So the condition is going to be if count is less than 11, and then actually we print every time console.log count, and in the meantime we have to increment every iteration. So this gives us actually from 0 to 10. Let's see. Of course, I have to link this while loop with my index.html file. So let's write script, and I have to link that source and while loop. So since I've been running this, let's see the value now. As you can see, it's coming from this file, the while loop. Now I can remove the previous links by to be confused. Save, and let me refresh again. Okay, yeah, nothing is coming from this. As you can see, 0 to 10. Great. we want to reverse this, we can do the other way. We can just change to this one 11, and we change this one to as long as count is greater than or equal to 0. We just decrease every time. Yes, but I think this should be 10. So this gives us actually from 10 to 0. As you can see, 10 to 0. Great. Yeah, this is while loop. And sometimes when you don't know how many times to count, you use while loop. Maybe if you want to run a while loop which runs all the time, you just use something like this: console.log this run forever, so it doesn't end. You may need sometimes to run a loop which doesn't stop at all, but you rarely need such kind of a loop. I think this is what it looks like. For more example and explanation also, you can check this part. Actually it doesn't have, so this is how it looks like. And then in the next video we'll talk about do while loop. See you soon. Welcome back. In this video we'll cover do while loop. In the previous we saw while loop. There's a minor difference between while and do while. This checks before execution. However, do while loop, as you can see, the loop do and then while comes later. Okay, so let's do some example. Do while loop.js. I can use the same example I have here just to print the previous example we have here. Let count is equal to 0 and do console.log count, and then every time we like to count, increase by 1, and we like to check the condition here while count is actually less than 11. And let's run this one. Okay, first I have to go to the index and then change this to do while loop. Yes, I think I didn't open it. I have to go and open it here. Yes, so it's Ctrl+Shift+I. As you can see from do while loop, yeah, it's coming from do while loop. I get from 0 to 10. That's great. But how about if my value, this one is 12 actually. If I put 12 and if I run it, let me just remove this, and as you can see 12 was printed out, but 12 is actually greater than 11 because this code runs before checking. So the checking comes later after execution. So do while loop run at least once without checking the condition. That's the difference between while and do while loop. Okay, in the next video we will talk about for off. Welcome back. In this part of the tutorial we see for off. Okay, then let's create for off loop.js. Just to make things very clear, for off used for arrays, to iterate arrays. Yeah, now let's compare between for of and just regular for loop. Regular for loop. When we write regular for loop, we use for and then curly bracket. Inside we have, for instance, the initialization, let I is equal to 0 and some condition. We never know the condition, so let's iterate through arrays. Const nums is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have array here, an array of numbers from 1 to 5, and our plan is now to extract each item from the nums array or the numbers. So I less than nums dot length and I plus plus. So if I print console.log nums, and then I can access them by their index, because the loop also starts from 0 and it goes up to the last index of the array. So because I is less than the length of this array, so that means the last index. So I, and this should extract each item of the arrays. So let's connect this with the index.html file for of, and let's run. I think it is on the desktop. Let's see, and that's our file, right? So Control Shift I and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great, this is what we want to have. Okay, but how about if we want to use for of instead of for loop? For of is so easy. For const num of nums, and then console.log num. So this gives us the same result. Let's see. As you can see, I can remove the previous result. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm getting this value, this result from this code. Great, but this one doesn't give you index of the array, so it just gives you only the item. For instance, if I are interested to multiply each item, and we can get something like this: 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. So this is how you use, just to make more example. For instance, const countries, and we have Finland and maybe Sweden and maybe Norway, Norway and Denmark. I think this is enough. So just to print out this, you can use const country of countries. It should be like that: console.log and then country. You can create Finland, Sweden, yes. For instance, if I'm interested in the length of the countries, country dot length. Yes, I can get at the same time Finland, and if I am interested to make it to capital, okay, country to upper case, and then if you see something like this, this is how you use for of. I think it's easy to use and very clean. I hope starting from today, whenever you get array, you may start using for, and it makes your code clean and easy to read. And in the next tutorial, we will see for each. Welcome back. Now we will see for each. Okay, as usual, let's create for each loop.js file, and similar to for each can be used with array only. Great. So the difference between for each and regular for, we use for each only with array. So const nums. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5. We have 5 numbers. This is how we print with a normal or regular for loop. For let I is equal to 0, I less than nums dot length, and I plus plus, right? And then console.log nums and then the index. Then we can iterate through the nums array. So let's connect this for each loop with the index. For each loop, yes. Now let's try to run. First I can remove everything. So 1 2 3 4 5. So great. Yeah, we have seen this also with, I think I'm in the wrong file, so I have to yes. Now let's do the same thing with for each. The structure or the skeleton of for each array dot an array dot do please for each, and then followed by actually a callback function. What is this callback function? Actually, it's just a function somewhere. You can write it like this function callback. Now undo please. Callback, and this callback usually takes the index, the item, and the array itself. Yeah, the array itself. So this is the structure of for each. So let us see. Now if I want to just console.log item, and then now instead of just array, I can change this array to this nums. So if I say just nums, and let's try to, as you can see, I managed to print out the values from 0 to 4. But why from 0 to 4? I didn't get it. Item 1 2 for each loop. Okay. Let's try something. Test item. Up to 16, it doesn't include the last for each. Nums. Console.log this is the for each part. Zero. Oh yeah, I was wrong. So is the index, let's try index maybe. Index. Yeah, the item. So okay, so now we saw the for loop, and let's see now for each. So the skeleton of the for each actually is dot array and followed by for each and a callback function. So what is this callback function? It's another function. We can write it like this: function and callback, and we can pass different parameters: item, index, and array itself actually, and then console.log item and index. Let's see. Now instead of arr as in array, let's just put the nums, because our array is here nums. As you can see now, from this item I am getting 1 2 3 4 5, and the second is index. Even if we interested the array, we can just print the array itself, but most of the time it's not important. So as you can see, I am also accessing the array itself. So whenever we are interested in the item, the index, and the array itself, for each is somehow handy. So yeah, you may also need to use for each instead of for off. But if we instead of for instance, if we are interested only in the items, for off is much better than for each. So I think that's the difference. And now let's make this code a bit cleaner. So how can we make this clean? Because this is a function, a callback function, which we are not going to use it, so we can put it inside. So actually we can just write this inside the for each, and it should give us the same result, right? Let's clean this and check. Yeah, it's giving me the same result. Now we don't need a name, even we can just write it like this, as you can see, and we are getting the same result. Then actually anonymous, since it's anonymous function, and we can also make it an row function, and it will be something like this, and still the result is the same. And most of the time you don't need the array, and it will be something like this. And index, most of the time we write it as I, and it's just very common. And this is the last result. Let's just remove this. Okay, finally, even if you are interested, if you have only just one line of code, you can return it explicitly, and it will be something like this actually. And I think I need one extra line. So if you want to see how it looks like, let me just make it a bit bigger. Yes, this is, so it's just one liner. That's very good. So let's try our code if it's still working, right? So it works. So to recap, for each you use for each only with arrays, and if you are interested in the index, the item, the array itself, then you use for each. But if you want to just work on the items of the array, I think for of is more handy. In the next tutorial we will see for in. Okay, welcome back. Now let's see for in. I think this is the last for loop in this tutorial. So let's first create a file and call it for in loop.js. For in is used with objects. Great. So whenever you want to access the value of the objects, then I think for in is really handy. So I have already an object here. I can make use of this object. Yeah, let's write it here. This is a user having the following keys: first name, last name, age, country, skills. Then if I am interested in this, actually for const, and then I say key. So that means I can access the key of this object in user, and then let's see console.log the key. So first I have to connect this JavaScript with for in. So for a loop, I have to now run this. I have to delete the previous first name, last name, age, country, and skills. That is very good. So that means I managed to access the key of the object. So we don't have to stop there. Using the key, actually we can also access the value. For instance, user and then the key, because this key, user, and the key for each of the key extract the value of the object. So let's try. For as you can see, yeah, first name as Sabine, last name and my last name, and it continues. Yeah, for instance, if we are interested to also loop through this value, actually we can also loop through the skills inside the for in by using another loop inside the for in loop. This is the main use of for in, and in this tutorial so far what we have covered actually is regular for loop. Whenever we know how many times we iterate, then we use a for loop, and we use a while loop is sometimes when you don't know how many times you should iterate, you use a while, and do while and while loop to have similar functionality. The difference is do while runs at least once before checking. And then what we saw, for of is a very handy for loop whenever you have an array, and if you are interested in the items of or the elements of the array. And then for each is powerful sometimes if you are interested in the index and the item and even the array itself. And then the last is for in used with only objects. You can use it with array in a different way, but I don't recommend. Just use it only uh, with objects. Yes, so remember, this is for objects, this is for array, this is for array, and this could be this could be generic, and this is also generic. It could be used in a different way, and this also just regular loop which can be used in different ways, in many ways, in different scenarios. I hope you learned something from this JavaScript Loops tutorial, and I will come in a different videos. Yeah, bye bye.